Hello, folks. So today I'm going to talk about Lightroom. Lightroom is a particular program that's going to use to go ahead and edit your photos. Now, the primary purpose of photography is you always want to, your goal is to actually get everything in right in camera first before you actually get to this. Don't use Lightroom as the end all be all type of program that's going to make your photography better. It's going to adjust things. You should be using Lightroom as a minimal type of element. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some of the aspects of it, some of the program elements that I do use all the time. All right, so as you see, I do have Lightroom Classic up. There are two versions of Lightroom. One is called Lightroom, no, basically regular Lightroom, and then there's Lightroom Classic. What I'm showing you today is Lightroom Classic, and when you open up the program, you should see this screen. What we're going to be dealing with today is we're going to go through Library and Develop and Print. So these are the three tabs that we're going to actually use in this particular um, session. All right. So first things first is you want to go ahead and make sure that you can import your photos that you have on an SD card, which you can plug in your SD card to a card reader, or if you're on a Mac, you can actually plug them into the back of the computer in an SD card slot. Once that's imported, or once that's inserted, you can actually start from this window. This particular window will give you some organizational elements that you can utilize throughout your whole process. So over here on the left, you're going to see a lot of category type elements. This is going to show you all your photos that you have, and this is going to show you some of the other parts of your photo, such as metadata. Metadata is a great resource if you want to make sure and see what a photo is taken at, whether it's a certain shutter speed and aperture, all that kind of stuff. It'll give you all that information right in the metadata portion. All right, so first what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to go down here to the very bottom left. You're going to see a button that says Import. When you click on Import, you should be bringing up this particular pop-up window. Now, on the left, you should see something a little bit different than what I'm seeing. This is how my computer is set up. It may not necessarily be yours. You may see a couple of them. The idea is to actually find your SD card. Now, I don't have an SD card inserted, so what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to go to a certain other area in my computer where I do have some original files. So I'm going to go ahead and find that. We're here, and then I have all my raw files here. Now, what's nice about this is that it's showing all of the photos that are incorporated into that particular photo. These are all raw files. So some of these are JPEGs because they're drone footage. All right. Now, over here, you can see there's a dial or slide for thumbnails. You can actually make this smaller if you need to. But the key is to go through and find out which ones do you want to actually import into the system. Right now, I'm going to uncheck all because I only want to import a few of them. Otherwise, it's just going to take a long time to do. So I'm going to select a few of them here, just so we can have something that's going to import. And then I'll go ahead and hit import. All right, giving you a few minutes to actually import all your photos. It's going to show a progress bar up there. And one of the things to keep everything very, very organized is you can create what is called collections. Collections are right here. And with the little plus sign, you can actually go ahead and hit create a collection. But before you do that, I want to go ahead and select all of my photos because I want to add them all into a collection. So I'm going to hold down Control A to select all, or if you're on a Mac, it is Command A. Once you select all of your images, you can go to the collections area and hit the plus sign and hit create collection. And what you can do here is you can give it a name of something that you're going to actually remember. Like right here, I named it by the company client name versus the what photos are actually going to go in there, what portion of those are. I'm going to hit create. And in there, you should see a collection that has been started that will only show those photos in it. So when those photos are imported, you'll see them up here. You'll also see them down here in the bottom, what we call film strip. All right. So with this shown, or with this chosen, that is the library tab. We're going to work on this a little bit more in the develop. So it's like once we have all these imported and inserted into a collection, we want to go ahead and adjust certain things in this particular photo. So with that photo, well, right now we want to go to a different tab. Right now it's like we're in library, we want to go ahead and develop. So in the old days when you had photos, you always went and had them developed. All right, so in this tab, we have the word develop. And in develop, you can actually go through and change certain things within your image. So right now I have all of my images selected. You do not want to have them all selected at the same time. You can either go and click outside of it, or you can actually hit Command or Control D. That will deselect. All right. So I'm going to click on my first image, and what you want to do is if you have like thousands of images imported, you want to be what was called culling. Culling is where you will look through each of the images and decide which ones that you actually want to keep, which ones you do not want to keep or modify. It is very important for you to understand or to go through this step first, mostly because you don't want to edit thousands of photos. You just want to be able to keep the ones and edit the ones that you actually want. So there is a way of actually going through some of these and keeping some of the ones you want. So like right here, if I click on this, you can go up with your cursor up in the middle, and you can actually click on it, and that will zoom in. If you unclick or click again, you can zoom out, or click again, and then you can actually move around the image to just see if everything's in focus. If it's in focus, you may want to choose that. So what I want to do is I actually want to flag it. And the way we do that is actually with keyboard shortcut. It's the P key. The P key, think about pick. So pick starts with a P. So we'll go ahead and hit pick, and you'll see the little tab that says flagged as picked. Now, if I decide that I want to unpick that, you do U. U is to unpick or remove the flag. All right, so P and U. So right now I want to pick that one, and then I can either go click on each one that I want, or you can actually use your arrow keys to, your right arrow key to go to the right, or the left arrow key to go to the left. And you can go through and decide, I want to pick that one, and 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 I want to pick that one. So I've picked all the photos that I absolutely want, but how do I separate them? And there's some that are picked and unpicked, and I don't want to go through each one of those to find out which one is picked and which one's unpicked. You can kind of see that there's a white flag on each of these to say that white flag refers to it has been picked. It's flagged. So if I want to go ahead and, let's say, filter all of those into just saying, I just want to see the flagged ones, you can go to the right and you'll see that there's a filter. Filters currently are off. If I click on that, you're going to see there's an option called flagged. If I choose flagged, it'll only show me the ones that are flagged, which is important, especially if you're dealing with hundreds and thousands of photos. And that's separating them. Now I want to go through and I want to edit some of them. So how do I do that? Well, off to the right, you're going to see that there is a number of different tabs here. You'll see that I'm just going to reveal all of them at the same time. You can see there's basic, tone curve, color mixer, color grading, detail, lens correction, transform, lens blur, effects, and calibration. I'm not going to show all of these. I'm going to basically just going to go through the basic one right now to just kind of show you where you're going to start. This is a very basic portion of this particular editing process. So this first step is temperature. We're dealing with the actual light color temperature. And if you're in a bright sunny day, it's going to appear bluish. If you're in a room with a incandescent bulb, it may seem a little bit more yellow in that particular room. But in this case, since I did take it in the daylight, so there was a lot of daylight coming through, it is balanced pretty accurate for what I want. Tint, if you want to go ahead and tint it a certain color, you can. Sometimes it just doesn't work that way. If there's a certain bulbs or whatever that actually will emit like a reddish glow, you can actually change the red, go to green, a little bit green, or you can, if it turns out green with some fluorescent bulbs, you can go to a reddish type of color. All right. Tone, exposure. How much of this is you want to expose? So if I go all the way up here, you'll see it blows out everything. If I go down this way, you'll see it darken up everything. All right. Sometimes you want to increase your exposure sometimes, but again, many of these settings, you should only be setting very minimal elements to, unless you want a certain look to it. So like I want to increase the exposure just a little bit, but I tend to shoot just tiny bit dark because what I want to do is I want to get that blue sky into the frame or into there. If I were to just overexpose for the shadows, you see, I would blow everything out. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to increase my exposure just a little bit. Contrast is that difference between light and dark that right now, if we go all the way to the left, you see it's very, very soft. If you go all the way to the right, you'll see there's a very, very high contrast, or that difference between the colors. All right, highlights and shadows. Highlights will go ahead and give you a little bit more information in the highlights, and shadows will give you more information in the shadows. Now, this is very important because when you take a photo, there's a lot more information within the shadows than there is actually in the highlights. Most cameras nowadays can take a lot of information, and highlights, it can get some information, but it's not going to get a lot as much as it does with shadows. So like if I have the highlights, I will go ahead and kind of like push it this way. You'll see the sky is getting a little bit bluer. And it gives a little bit more definition within the clouds there. If I go the other way with shadows, you can kind of see I'm lightening up the shadow portion with all the information that's there. Or if I go the other way, you'll see it really darkens that up. So that's what I want to do. I want to increase a little bit more of the detail within the shadows. Then whites and blacks, we'll go look at more detail within the white areas. Or blow out like a lot of the white areas. So look for white and dark, or white and black in this particular photo. All right. Presence, texture. If you go in one particular way, it's going to leave it a lot more flat, more soft. If you go the other way, it's going to really, really bring out all the textures in the photo. A lot of times I don't like to do that. But again, you may like that. There's no right or wrong in it. So whatever your style is. So I like to go a little bit softer on the textures. Clarity will add a lot more contrast. If you go one direction, it'll go really, really super soft. Or you go the other way, you're going to add a lot more of that texture or definition around some of the edges in that photo. Dehaze, again, you're going to go really soft throughout the whole thing. Or if you go this way, it'll kind of like take that layer of softness off the image and make things a little bit more sharp and contrasty. Now, vibrance, what it's going to do is it's going to look at each of the colors and it's going to either brighten them up or it will dull them. It's not going to go full black and white grayscale, but it will dull the image or dull the colors in it. So sometimes if you want a really bright image, you would increase the vibrance. I try not to go too far into that area. It's so nice that it's really bright and sunny, but I don't like to go too far into that. Saturation, however, if you go all the way to the left, it will take out all the colors. So it'll go complete grayscale. If I go this way, it will increase the brightness of each of the colors in that image. All right. So those are some of the settings that you want to use for your image. Very, very basic. If, for instance, sometimes what you have is a image that is just not cropped the way you want it to, you want to adjust it just a little bit. You always want to try and get it framed in camera as best as you possibly can, but sometimes you may need to like tilt it a little bit just to make it look a little bit better. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up here and I'm going to adjust this. This is a crop tool right here. And if I move this around, you can kind of see that it creates a grid. That grid can use to line things up a little bit. Now, this image was taken an angle, so it's not really that big a deal. But once I do that, I can go ahead and hit return, and it will show that. Okay. All right. So those are some of the developing tools. Some of the things that you want to adjust as you're working in your photos. All right. So one of the other questions is, how do you get this stuff out of here? How do you go ahead and get these photos out of Lightroom? It's not like they go automatically saved somewhere. You have to export them. So you can export them one at a time, or what I like to do is I'll go ahead and hit Control A, and Control A will select all of these. Now, I did forget something, so I'm going to step back. So disregard that for just a second. As you're going through each of these photos, you may want to adjust some of those settings as well. But what if some of these settings are almost identical to one of the ones you had before? If you go to your original photo you made edits on, you do have this option called copy. If you hit copy, it'll bring up this particular window. This window will show you all the settings that you set, and you can hit copy. And when I hit copy and I go to the next photo, you can hit paste. And what it will do is it will apply all those settings that you just had over here into that photo. So you can go ahead and again hit paste. And sometimes you may want to adjust some as you're going, just to kind of like brighten up some if you need to, as you're editing your images. Okay. Now we'll go back to exporting. So what I want to do is I want to hit Control A or Command A on a Mac, just so I select all the images that I have here. And then I'll go up to File, Export. And with Export, you get this particular window, which is nice. If you want to go ahead and put it in a specific folder, you can do that, which I would encourage you to do because to keep organization. All right, and then you choose that folder. And right now, I'm just going to put it on my desktop for now and select the folder. And then you can put it in a subfolder. That subfolder will go ahead and put it in a folder. It will create a folder to dump these into. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to name it Memphis. You can also give it another file name. So it's like you can rename it instead of the normal DCS or whatever it is. You can give it a name. And what it will do is it will apply that name -1, -2, -3, -4, so on and so forth. All right, some of the other elements in here, you kind of see there are certain file settings. If you want them to go to certain JPEGs, you can set that to a certain quality. Image size, output sharpening, metadata, watermark. Sometimes, like some photographers like to add watermarks in there. Nothing wrong with it. I just don't, mostly because it's like I know there's software out there that will remove those, and if they really, really want to do that. But then you can always prove that somebody stole your image. So, all right, so we've gotten all that, and we can go ahead and hit export, and we'll wait for this to kind of like get done exporting. Export 6 files. Looking at this up here, and it's now done. Your files have been exported to send to your client or send to somebody else if you so choose. All right. So now for the assignments that we're going to be doing, I want you to upload contact sheets. Now, how do you do that? Well, contact sheets, and I'm going to go ahead and select all again. All right. If you go up to the print tab up here, I hit the print tab. All right. It's going to show me all these, and it'll give me all the overview of that tab. All right. So what we want to do is we want to add these into a contact sheet. How we're going to do that is we can go ahead and hit page setup. Page setup will give me this option to go ahead and tell me what size it is and what printer it's going to go to. But it's not going to print. It's just going to allow me to do this and change its size. All right. Off to the right, you're going to see an option underneath layout. It says page grid, rows and columns. If I hit rows, it's going to allow me to add rows in. If I add columns, it can allow me to add columns. So I can increase these just to make sure they're all in there properly as we do that. All right, you're going to add some self-spacing, or if you want to add some self-spacing, you can do that. If we scroll down, you're going to see other things such as the page. You can set the background color if you wanted to. But we're going to leave it at white for now. All right. And we want to scroll down to the very bottom where it says print job. It says print jobs. Right now it says print to, and it says printer. If I choose that and hit JPEG file, it's going to export out as a JPEG file. Which means it's going to put this all as JPEG, and the JPEG is what you're actually going to want to upload. All right, so everything is done there. We're going to go ahead and hit print to file, and we want to give it a name. Since I've been given this all here, and hit save. Yeah, I guess I named it, which it went into a folder, so disregard what it just did. Hit save. Wait for this to be done. And we're almost ready here. All right. And looks like it printed out to the file. So, all right. So that is all there is to Lightroom for now. Hopefully you guys got a grasp on that. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at any time. All right. So that concludes this particular tutorial. Have a good weekend.